Let me drink some water before I do this. Hey, what's up YouTube? Betty Dots here. It's been a while since I've done a Guilty Gear Strive analysis, but hey, Bridget's out, has been out for a second. Season 2 is upon us, and so it's time to analyze. We got Bridget's theme, The Town Inside Me, a little bit different from the rest of the themes in the soundtrack, and I'm really excited to look at it and see what's going on over there. Now, I will say, I want to do this a little bit different than we usually do the things, because I feel like we always end up with very long videos. If you want to see the whole analysis, you can always go to the VOD playlist that I now have in my YouTube. Check out the VOD. They're not going to disappear like on Twitch, so you can check it out at any time and see what my whole process was. But in the actual YouTube video, I want to give you a professional, nitty-gritty, looking at the actual things and getting all the information that we want, right? So the way that this is going to work is that I'm going to listen to the song, give you my first impressions, kind of react to what I like, what I don't like about the song. Then we'll go straight into analyzing. Once I have all the information sorted out, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of everything that's happening with the song, all the interesting concepts that Daisuke might be using in the situation, and hopefully it'll be an enjoyable experience for everyone. I am sorry this is taking this long, but I'm very excited to finally do it. Let's go ahead and give a listen to The Town Inside Me from Guilty Gear Strive by Daisuke Ishiwatari and then AISHA on the vocals. Let's see. We start with the hook. I'm going to turn it up a little bit on my end. Alright. Starts building up. There's a little bit of electronic percussion. I do like those strings. Ooh, that bass is hot. And then it drops, right? Very electronically oriented song, which I have enjoyed the electronic songs in the other ones. Pretty sure this is all riding on one chord, so a little bit of a modal situation. A little bit of a call and response for the vocals. God, Cloud Drop's edits are always so good, right? Shouts out to Cloud Drop. It's classy. I like it. You see those little synths in the back? The little burpy, farty ones are nice. I like it because usually Guilty Gear songs are very overblown, right? And this is very down here. Maybe setting up for something later in the song. What do you mean tastes like vegetables? I don't like. Dude, okay, I don't know about that. That's kind of weird. Okay, so this is the same as the beginning, but a little bit more in there. Kind of almost marching band percussion, concert band. I feel like I'm watching Hibike Euphonium or something right now. The bass on that chorus is so hot when it does that little lick. Of course, we gotta do the Bridget walk. For Santa Claus. Dude, I don't know about so I understand that she's a kid, but a little, these very kiddie themes that they're referring to in the lyrics are a bit much for me. It's a little bit too on the nose, right? I feel like you could imply that without it being so cringely obvious, you know? Oh, I like this. It starts picking up, kind of double kicking. Like this. Ooh. Now we're in Hibike Euphonium. What is this? Okay, the brass coming in is fantastic over here. And they double time it. I'm kind of sad that it takes so long to get to here, because this is such a nice release. Okay, then we got the whole marching band section. Little palm muted guitar in the back. This is cool. Nice little build up with the guitar. I don't remember where it takes us though. Okay, so we go into the verse, but now there's guitar in there. Still 4 on the floor, very fast. Little kind of 16th note has right there. Okay, a little bit of a Motown beat there, right? Those hi-hats are going crazy. Nowhere to go. It's all just food, you know. What is all just food? Food for thought? What is she trying to say, dude? What changes no longer change me. Change. That's nice. I think Aisha like really pops off in this like last chorus, right? Harmony beautiful in there for that like last little phrase. Nice little guitar takes us out. That's pretty. I mean, honestly, I like that a lot. By the way, shouts out Cloud Drop. If you're not subscribed to Cloud Drop, they got the best lyric videos for all the Guilty Gear Strive songs. I use them for my videos all the time. I like it a lot. I don't love some of the themes touch, but also some of the parts of the lyrics are like super good from like where I've like read them before. There's a lot of references to her lore and like what's been happening with Bridget coming out as trans, Bridget being confirmed as a trans character and like all that. There's a lot of references like these situations that I think are subtle, but very nice, very on the nose, and they feel natural. At least like from my reading of it, I like really like the way that they presented. The little kid stuff is like weird, not weird in like a bad way, just kind of like in a cringe way, because like the voice of like, oh, it tastes like vegetables, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But the song in general is like really cool. It just works like a whole build up that, I don't know, sets up like some really nice releases towards the end of the song. Do I wish that they happened before? Yeah, maybe. I think that like the beginning of the song kind of like stales. And again, I always say this, but Guilty Gear Strive, the matches are so fast that you gotta like give me some damage at the beginning for me to like be engaged like right away, right? Because we're not gonna get there during the match. It is a pretty short song, right, at 4 minutes, so like, I mean, I guess you could like sort of get there sometimes, but still, the point stands. Anyway, we're gonna look at all the parts of the song, see what the coolest parts are, see what kind of ideas we can get from the chord progressions, from the melodies had, from the arrangement, right? I think arrangement is a big deal here. The form, how everything's working out right there. And then we'll like just sum it all up and see what's going on, see if we can get some good information out of this. There's a couple of things that I think we need to get out of the way before we like fully understand what's going on here. This song is very thematically rich. If you look at the lyrics, they don't say that much, but they say enough, and with enough of a tone for us to have like certain interpretations tied to Bridget's lore, right? And everything that's been going on with Bridget in terms of like her new iteration. So obviously Bridget has been confirmed to be a trans character, a trans femme character. And I think that like this song is definitely trying to point towards her journey in that. And I think it does it in a very elegant way, in a way that is like very relatable, very cool, and very interesting in terms of like the emotion of a person struggling with these things, right? It's almost like funny how on the nose they get about like these interpretations. The way that I'm like reading The Town Inside Me, it just kind of has to do a lot with like complacency, right? Which I think is like a very common theme in like just, you know, like the queer struggle, right? And like being comfortable with yourself and being comfortable with your own identity, whether it be like your sexual identity or your gender identity or what it might be. Because Bridget is constantly talking in this song about, you know, her being the one to blame, about like, hey, I'm patient, but it's bearable, right? There's like this whole theme of like, this is not the most comfortable context for me to be in. I don't feel great, but hey, I can take it. It's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm the one to blame. These are my feelings. Why should anyone else worry about the way that I'm feeling, right? When it's like me, I'm the one that's like making a big deal about this. And that the beginning of the song feels like that. It feels like she's almost being like self-hating in a way, blaming herself in a way that doesn't feel fair towards herself, but she's not realizing. At the same time, this is like kind of paired with like a very electronic sort of backdrop, something a little bit more robotic, a little bit more like going with emotion. It's fun, it's cool, it implies the like possibility of a happier ending, but it just feels like it's kind of down here, not really at the human part of it yet. I think that like the anchor around that whole situation, that phrase, I'm the one to blame, we come back to over and over. And I think that like the musical backdrop of the song evolving from an electronic, very like sort of robotic sort of backdrop to something a little bit more soulful, filled with a band and guitar and like drums and like all these situations like happening at the same time and like very celebratory, a whole brass band behind you. It like really does feel like the credits of like a very celebratory movie. Is that phrase, I'm the one to blame? Because at the beginning when she says I'm the one to blame, it kind of feels like she's talking about like, hey, I'm the one to blame because these are my feelings and I shouldn't be worrying other people with my feelings. I shouldn't be inconveniencing other people with my feelings. I'll just deal with these feelings that I have and like it doesn't matter, it's fine, I'm not gonna like listen to it. But when she says I'm the one to blame towards like like the final chorus, filled with that emotion and all of that situation, which I do want to like kind of close read those like lyrics at the end. So the night falls, the place where I belong. No matter what changes, it will no longer change me, right? She's talking with a lot more command. She feels empowered. She feels like she really has the confidence to like take her feelings seriously. So when she says, me without me, I'm the one to blame, I think at that point she's not talking about like, hey, these are my feelings, don't worry about it, right? I think she's talking more about like, I'm the one to blame because I haven't been listening to myself this whole time. I haven't been taking my feelings seriously. And so I'm the one to blame for this not being resolved, and it's gonna stop now. I am going to start taking myself seriously. I am going to start being true to my own identity, because that shouldn't be an inconvenience to like other people. That should just be my own journey, and that should be fine for me to like worry about, and it's okay for me to ask for help. I think it's a really beautiful theme that like goes throughout the whole song. I think that the song does a really good job of like accompanying that, and when we look at the form of the song and listen to it again, we can talk about like how that works. Lyrically, outside of like the kind of like kiddie phrases that are in there that I don't love, I think it's like a personal thing, it feels a little bit cringe, I don't want to put it that way, but the rest of the stuff is very, very powerful. I think that like Daisuke and AISHA put together something that like really embodies the struggle of Bridget in a way that I think a lot of people can like look at, relate to, and feel kind of comforted by it, right? Because it's not just like a BS like, oh yes, I know myself, like all this stuff. Is like, hey, maybe my feelings don't matter, maybe this is like not a big deal and I'm just like freaking out about something. I think that like every person that has like grown up queer has probably experienced that in some sort of way. Like, hey, maybe I'm making just a big deal about this and maybe I should just like shut up, right? So seeing her evolve from that stance in the lyrics of this song through the music of the song, I think is like a really beautiful thing. Let's start looking at the music itself. I don't think the verse of the song has that much to like talk about, right? It's like really cool in terms of like, you know, the instrumentation. You got some like very electronic, nice dancey sort of situations. You see, I didn't like write that much about it. I wrote that it's an F mixo, which comes from B flat major, right? And I guess I can like talk a little bit about that. So when the verse starts, we're mostly running on this F dominant chord, the 5 chord of B flat major, right? But we're centering around it. So we wouldn't say that this is in B flat major. We would say that this is an F mixolydian because it's centered around the 5 chord. That's like modal theory. That's something that you shouldn't worry that much about. They're writing this section of the song modally because they're not doing chord changes. They're just sticking to that chord the whole time. We saw that done on the Gold Lewis theme. We saw that done on the Happy Chaos theme. Both great examples of like how modal songwriting can give you this like static, but almost like uncomfortable, but just it gives you a new sound, right? It gives you new sounds to like explore. That's like what the point of modal composition is. Writing over one chord instead of relying on chord changes to like create interest. Right? It's all over this F mixo chord. Even the bass line is referring to that same like F dominant chord. It's just an arpeggio of that chord, right? So there's not a lot going on there in terms of like chords, but it is a very cool sound. You see, it sounds different than major, it sounds different than minor because it's neither. It's like a dominant sort of bluesy sort of situation. It feels playful, but in a cool, like kind of commanding and confident way, which I really like for the verses of the song because they do have that like upbeat sort of pace. It works really well. Afterwards, they stay on that F mixolydian situation, but they just start using more chords. They don't actually play the chords really. They just have like bass note switching, which kind of gets you outside of that static modal situation. It's almost using the F mixolydian mode in a tonal way. So all these notes that they're playing in like the second half of the verse are all from F mixolydian. They're from that same scale, but since they're changing the bass notes, it feels a little bit more like chord changes, which makes it feel a little bit more tonal. Again, modal songwriting is when we rely on one chord. Tonal songwriting is when we rely on chord changes like keep interest. So there is a back and forth in these verses between the static, sort of like jarring nature of modal composition and the more like traditional active nature of tonal composition. Here's that tonal section of the second part of the verse.
I've been patient, but it was bearable. I've had the great haze for a long time.
You see? A lot of changes in the bass. But then it goes right back into that same modal like F7 situation. Pretty cool. Not a lot to talk about there outside of that. I do want to talk about the chords, because the chorus is when things start getting a little bit more interesting, and I think there's a lot to talk about musically. The chorus is relying on a very standard chord progression as far as major scale chord progressions go. It is an E flat major, right? And in that E flat major, we are playing the 6th chord, C minor. We are playing the 6th chord, C minor. We are playing the 2 chord, F minor. We are playing the 5 chord, B flat major. And we are playing the 1 chord, E flat. Now, why am I calling them numbers? Well, the 6th chord is based on the 6th note of the scale, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? And then et cetera, et cetera. F is the 2nd note of B flat major. B flat is the 5th note of E flat major. So 6, 2, 5, 1 is the chord progression that we're looking at here. It sounds like this. It might sound familiar to like some of you. We got the town inside me. Da, 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 da. That chord progression is like very cool for a number of reasons, but I think that like the coolest thing that I like figure out while I'm doing this is that this is actually the same chord progression as the Cruel Angel's Thesis, the opening for like Evangelion, right? Like if you think of Sankoku na tenshi no yoni, it's the same deal, right? Like we have the same chord progression. Now, is there meaning behind that? I think that like the Cruel Angel's Thesis is probably a huge song in Japan, so maybe there is like a little bit of a nod, a little bit of a reference, because not only is it the same chord progression, it's in the same key. And I think that like this song is a bit of a coming of age story. I think that, you know, Evangelion is definitely a coming of age story of like Shinji trying to like figure out himself. This is a song about Bridget trying to figure out herself. Is there something there? Who knows? Watch Evangelion. I mean, honestly, best opening in the world. Anyway, so a 6-2-5-1. What's the big deal with this chord progression? Why do I keep calling it such a good chord progression, such a common chord progression? We've talked about this before, but if you haven't seen like the other videos, this is all based on the idea of like circular motion. Circular motion just like gets things activated. It like makes things satisfying. When we move in the circle of fifths, when we go down fifths with chords, we're essentially tapping into the human psyche. Us as humans, we expect chords to go down a fifth. We expect C, the 5th of F, to go down to that F. We expect F, the 5th of B flat, to go down to that B flat. We expect B flat, the 5th of E flat, to go down to that E flat. So a 6-2-5-1 is like perfect circular motion going throughout most of the chords of the majors go. That makes it so that that loop is very, very satisfying. If you want another example of like that going on, the intro for Happy Chaos's theme is the same deal, right? Like in Happy Chaos's theme, we don't have a 6-2-5-1, but we do have a 2-5-1-4, which is essentially the same deal, but like starting over here, 2, 5, 1, 4, right? If we kept going with that sequence of going down fifths, that's what you would end up with. So you got the same 6-2-5-1, the, let's call it the Evangelion chord progression at this point, right? Sankoku na tenshi no yoni. I can't believe it's the same thing. The town inside me. Dun, 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 dun. They repeat it. Only I'm not. Dun, 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 dun. And then they break off from it, right? They stay on the 1 chord, as you can see down here. They go to E flat. I can go home. And they start introducing some chords that are not part of the scale, essentially making a little nod at something that they're going to do later. Both of the chords that have a blue outline around them, this flat 7 and this flat 6, are part of E flat minor, not E flat major. They are stolen from that scale, put in this context, and you end up with this a bit of a hybrid sound. You can tell like how that part of the chorus, it's not that it sounds weird, but it sounds novel. It sounds like it has this new groove to it, right? I can go home. Dun, 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 dun. You see how special that chord sounds? Na, 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 na. You see that flat 6 also has a lot of weight. I would say maybe even more weight than the flat 7. And it's because it's gonna be like a little bit of a reference to what's gonna happen on the last line of the chorus, which I think is like the coolest part of the chorus. Da, 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 da. That C flat major sounds so good. I'm calling it C flat major and not B major because it's technically the flat 6 of B flat major, so it would be technically incorrect for me to call it B major. If you want to know why, let me know in the comments and I can like explain it. I find it important. I do want to clarify also that all of these chords are more complex than the things I'm writing down, but I do think that like talking about triads instead of talking about like 7 chords with extensions and all these things, I think is a little bit more conducive for us like get an analysis, because if you're doing like a C major 7, sharp 11, at 13, whatever, like y'all might not know what those chords are. It's not really important. It doesn't change the role of the chord within the key, which to me is like the most important part. The cool thing that this song does at the end is that it repeats the same chord progression again. 6, 2, 5, but it doesn't go to 1, right? It goes to a chord that's outside of the key. So that's weird. You're ending your chorus is very like tonal, very pretty chords. You're ending it on a chord that is not part of the key. How does that work? Even if you don't know anything about like music and about how chords work, you can hear right away that like that chord change is special. That when they go to that like last chord of the chorus, it's like it has this open-ended feeling to it that's like really special. And last line, 2, right here. You see, it like sounds like a jazzy sort of ending, but it shouldn't work. Why could you end like the chord progression with a chord that's not part of the key? Well, it's actually very simple. This melody has the particularity that it ends on the first note of the scale. We are in E flat major and she says, dun, 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 I'm the one to blame. If you end your melody on the first note of the scale, there's some really easy ways that you can like spice up that ending. Essentially by like thinking not about the chords that belong to the scale, but about chords that that melody note belongs to. What do I mean by that? Well, in this case, you're using the flat 6, which is B major. The melody note is E flat. Notice that even though B major is not part of E flat major, that E flat in the melody is part of that B major chord, right? So if I do dun 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 dun, I'm the one to blame. If I end on the 1 chord, it sounds fine. I'm the one to blame. But it's kind of like normal. It's kind of boring. If I end on that flat 6, I'm the one to blame. It has this like lift. It sounds like elevated. You can do it with a lot of other chords. I'm the one to blame. And on the flat 2, that sounds like straight up jazz right there. You can also do it with the flat 3 very easily with G flat major. I'm the one to blame. Also sounds very cool, very jazzy, very pretty. It has like almost like a fantasy sound to it, right? Anyway, just a really cool way that you can reharmonize the ending of a song if that song ends on the first note of the scale. Because instead of thinking of like what chords do I have available on the key, you can think about what is my melody note and what chord, whichever chord, would work with that melody note. Instead of thinking of the chords of the key, you're thinking of the melody note and it being the chord tone of a different chord. It also gives this like open-ended feeling to the theme of I'm the one to blame, right? That pivoting phrase that we were talking about before that kind of like really sets up the theme. Landing the I'm the one to blame on this like kind of like open-ended kind of weird chord gives it this like edge to it, right? It like makes it be like, oh wow, like what's going on there? There's a little bit of uncertainty going on right there. Really not much happening with the bridge. It's just this like big instrumental buildup that's like really pretty, but it's just all in like the same keys that we've been like dealing with. It doesn't present anything that I like want to close read or it gives us any new situations. All right, let's listen to the Town Inside Me one more time. Let's do it while like looking at the form so we can see what's going on there. Again, thinking about those themes of complacency, starting to pay attention to your feelings a little bit more, blaming yourself for your feelings and then taking them seriously enough to like try to do something about them. The Town Inside Me, Daisuke Ishiwatari, Guilty Gear Strive, Bridget's theme. Let's see. All right, so this is chorus 1. Mostly voices, strings come in. This is like the opening of the play, right? Well, like just setting up everything, opening up for us to start enjoying. Starts building up. A little bit of percussion. The strings are coming in. Back to only voices. And then we go into verse 1. Huge contrast. 2 bass lines at the same time, right? We got like the bass guitar and we got that like farty bass synth at the bottom. It's completely electronic, which gives it this like almost like non-human sound to it. Similar to what they do with Ram's theme, right? Where they talk about like her non-human self with the electronic parts, and her human self with the instrumental parts. I think this song does it better though. Another thing to like point out here is that like it does have like a bit of a cool vibe, like almost like a pretend cool vibe. Like kind of like how the lyrics are talking about like her playing it cool, like hey, it's not that big deal, I like, you know, I can bear it. I think this is referring to that because it's like just kind of, yeah, I'm cool, I'm fine, I'm doing all right. It also rips, it's like so dancey, right? Now chorus 2 has a similar vibe to the first chorus, still kind of slow, still kind of ornate, but it's a lot heavier, right? It's almost like the emotions are bursting out of her, right? They're like starting to like trickle out, right? We're starting to like get a little bit more humanity. Bridget paying a little bit more attention to her, maybe losing her patience that she's talking about. I'm the one to blame into verse 2. Same cool vibe, a little bit more humanity. Notice, hand claps, human elements, guitar on the side, right? It's a little bit hard to hear, but I think it's important. We got some like real people instruments going on here. Again, a more human, more organic vibe. That guitar is so good. I really like what they did there. This is even more human, right? Like drum set, it's starting to like pick up. It starts like exciting, right? Like something important is about to happen, but like more celebratory, right? And here's chorus 3. I love chorus 3 because this is when we achieve humanity. The whole band is in. There's this huge brass arrangement in the back. It almost feels like she's finally allowing herself to, you know, express herself and be like cool with having feelings, right? Which I think maybe she was like disallowing herself from like being able to do it. And from that humanity comes this big buildup, right? Like maybe in a way, her just blooming into like understanding herself better, into accepting her feelings better, right? It's really pretty. I feel like there's a lot of emotion charged into that bridge. This is urgent, right? Very similar to verse 2, but very urgent. She's like kind of talking instead of singing. She's almost like pissed, right? But in like an exciting way. And then the final chorus. We got this Motown beat. Everyone's in. She feels like she's filled with decision now, right? Right here.
I know where to go now. I know where to go.
So good. I really like that. And then it just intensifies more after she says, I'm the one to blame because I'm the one that's not listening to myself. So she starts listening to herself. Look at this, Aisha. She really leans into that one because I feel like that's like the most important part. That's like the conclusion of the theme of the song. And then it just ends, right? I feel like they were able to encapsulate so much emotion into like a 4-minute song. I think they did it in a way where like nothing's extra, nothing's like left over. I mean, mind you, there are parts of the song that I like don't love, for sure. There are things that are not my favorite, but I think in terms of like executing the idea of like talking about her lore, talking about her like own mental process, her like kind of coming of age situation, right? And like figuring out herself and all these things, I think they did it very accurately, and they did it with just like a very on point intention, like doing exactly what they needed to do to send the message that they wanted to send. So in general, I think that this song is one of the best in the soundtrack. I think it stands out from the rest in like a very nice way, and I think it's definitely a great addition to like the Guilty Gear soundtrack, a great opening to like season 2. Let me know in the comments if you like the way that I went about this video, right? It's a little bit different than how we usually do it, but hopefully it's something that you like. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you're interested in catching the live streams, or if you just like what we're doing over here. Thank you so much for your support over all this time, right? I'm a tiny channel, so I'll take anything that I can get. It really does mean a lot to me when you like comment nice things in the comments, or when you like say cool things to me. Again, I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for paying attention to my analysis. I will see y'all next time. Peace out.